Imagine being transported to the future when you are supposed to be dead. This is the story of Aang, who gets transmigrated to the future. Why was Aang transported, and how will he cope in this new world? Let's find out together in the amazing video. Surrounded by numerous corpses, a man on the brink of death reflects on his fate. He realizes that despite being called the strongest soldier, he's about to die like everyone else, which feels unworthy of the title strongest. He thinks about how he managed to kill all the 7-finned demonic monsters, yet an 8-finned one still remains within the ancient king monument. This makes him understand that humans have not fully grasped the true power of demons, and he blames himself for failing in his duty as the strongest. As the 8-finned monster approaches, the man wonders what it intends to do. The creature reaches out its hand, and the man, slowly losing consciousness, speculates that it might be after his body because he killed so many of its kind. As he drifts away, he finds himself in a pitch-black space, questioning if this is what happens before death. Suddenly, a light appears, gradually growing brighter. The man suddenly finds himself surrounded by a group of men and immediately wonders if he is dreaming. He reaches up to touch his face and is shocked to realize that it isn't his own face. He's no longer the cool, unbeatable, charismatic, yet handsome man with a strong body that he remembers. Panic sets in as he questions who he is now and where he might be. He soon finds out that he's in the Heluos region, where the third commander Tang is addressing the men lined up like soldiers. Yao Tang speaks with authority, telling them to focus on what he's about to say. He asks them what it means to participate in the soldier evaluation, then answers himself saying that a soldier stands for protection and hope. He explains that in the year 3069, 6 large ancient king monuments appeared out of nowhere, marking the beginning of doomsday on their planet. From these monuments, creatures known as demons emerged and began to slaughter mankind. Yao Tang continues by describing the horrific cruelty humans endured during the battle that led to the extinction of multiple species. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity eventually devised a way to resist the demons through the use of the transplanted armor. This armor is created by utilizing the inner cores of the demons they've collected, allowing humans to undergo a process called synthesis, which temporarily grants them strength comparable to that of the demons. Yao Tang then recounts how, 60 years ago, humanity's most noble and strongest warrior Aang, a man who elevated the status of soldiers to that of kings, led all the soldiers in the world against the most powerful demon wave in history. The battle raged on for countless weeks, throwing the world into chaos and despair. However, the human soldiers ultimately managed to repel the demon wave, inflicting severe damage on the demon race and ushering in the era of development they now live in. The man, still confused about how he ended up in this situation, is shocked to discover that he has transmigrated 60 years into the future. To his disbelief, he learns that he is Aang, the very soldier who led the war that Commander Yao Tang is talking about. Yao Tang continues his speech, explaining that during that time, countless noble and strong soldiers were lost, including humanity's strongest soldier, Aang, who was said to have died in battle against numerous highest-tiered 7-finned demons. As Yao Tang speaks, he tells the soldiers that those who fought in that righteous battle against the demons, refusing to retreat, paved the way for a new era, a time known historically as the Battle of Dawn. Aang listens, but he realizes that something is wrong. Yao Tang is mistaken because the highest tier among demons isn't the 7-finned, but the 8-finned. Aang understands that humans still haven't fully grasped the true capabilities of demons. Yao Tang continues, saying that without soldiers, there would be no life or home, and that being a soldier is the noblest identity, representing protection and hope. He asks the soldiers if they understand the meaning of being a soldier, and they all shout in unison, "Yes, Commander." Meanwhile, Aang murmurs to himself, reflecting on the mistakes humans have made. As Yao Tang walks among the men, he stops in front of Aang and asks him if he doesn't understand the symbol that soldiers represent. Aang stares back in shock, and Yao Tang asks for his name. Aang hesitates, wondering if he should reveal that he is Aang, but doubts that anyone would believe he has transmigrated 60 years into the future into a weak body. Yao Tang then mocks him, saying that Aang is disgracing the honor of the righteous name by sharing the same name as their greatest soldier. It is at this moment that Aang notices a tag on his clothes displaying the name Aang. Yao Tang harshly criticizes him, calling him a foolish man who hasn't even achieved the basic foundation of a soldier's self-cultivation, yet still dares to dishonor the noble name. He punches Aang, who falls to the ground, cursing the useless body he now inhabits. Yao Tang then warns Aang that he will be paying extra close attention to him during the soldier evaluation. Finally, he orders everyone to move to the evaluation field, where the next test will be the physical evaluation. A man kneels beside Aang and asks if he's all right. Aang replies that he's still alive, and the man comments on how honorable his name is. He then introduces himself as Lan Sinuo and suggests that they should get along. As Sinuo helps Aang to his feet, a woman named Situ Lu walks by and calls Aang a brat who does whatever he wants, thinking he has similar abilities just because he shares the same name as Aang, the legendary soldier. She dismisses him as childish before leaving the room. Aang, still aching from the punch, asks Sinuo why she cares about his name. Sinuo explains that Liu is the most anticipated evaluation soldier of their group and is nicknamed the cold-blooded demon. He adds that she is the daughter of the most esteemed martial family in the Hiluos region, the Situ noble family. Aang finds the surname Situ vaguely familiar. Just then, a lady suddenly snaps a picture of Aang and Sinuo as they stand together. She comments that their bromance is enchanting and tells them they can ignore her as long as they continue. Both Aang and Sinuo stare at her in shock, and Aang asks who she is. The woman introduces herself as Suiji Yuhui and says that their bromance just now captivated her. In the physical evaluation field, Aang confidently believes that even with his current body, he is still the strongest soldier. He boasts to himself that the evaluation is laughable and that he will achieve outstanding results that will shock everyone. As all the soldiers prepare for the assessment, the examiner explains that the first stage is a long-distance run to test their perseverance. He shoots a gun to signal the start of the race, and Aang takes off in the lead. He thinks to himself that taking first place with just a single burst of energy must be record-breaking. However, by the end of the race, Aang finds himself in last place, breaking the worst record in the history of the long-distance run assessment. The other soldiers laugh at him as he falls to the ground, realizing that his current body is unbelievably weak. In the second stage of the physical assessment, which tests arm strength, Aang comes in last again, twisting his wrist in the process. In the third stage, a test of leg strength, Aang is once again in last place, managing to jump only 1 meter. When the results of the physical evaluation are announced, Aang is at the very bottom, first from the back. The others mock him for having the worst and most ridiculous results and for being on the verge of elimination. Sinuo tries to cheer Aang up as he laments his poor performance, while Yuhui takes a picture of them, thinking it might be her last chance to capture a moment of them together. Meanwhile, the examiner informs Yao Tang that with Aang's dismal results, there's no need for him to continue to the second evaluation. They could simply eliminate someone who did as poorly as Aang. However, Yao Tang insists that even if there's no hope left for Aang, he still has the right to participate in the second assessment since it will be his last evaluation anyway. The examiner then announces the start of the second assessment, explaining that it will test how well each person's frequency synchronizes with the synthetic armor. Aang smiles to himself, confident that he has a chance in this test, because 60 years ago he was the strongest being with a synchronization rate of over 96% with the synthetic armor. He reasons that while his current body might be hopeless in terms of physical strength, synchronization frequency is determined by willpower, and he's determined to show everyone the level at which the strongest soldier can synchronize. Everyone is given a synthetic armor to wear, and Aang notices that the armor is much lighter than what they wore 60 years ago. Situ Liu reaches a synchronized frequency of 39%, and everyone praises her, saying it must be the highest score of the year. They admire the fact that those from martial families, like Liu, are indeed different. As her synchronization is completed, Liu leaves the machine with a confident stride, while everyone continues to praise her for her great talent. As Liu exits the room, she feels proud of her performance and quietly praises herself for doing well. Inside the room, Aang watches as everyone continues to praise Liu. Sinuo comments to Aang that Liu is really energized and she can sense a strong, intense energy coming from Liu's slim physique. Aang agrees, saying he can also feel that powerful energy. Sinuo is surprised that Aang seems so calm and not nervous at all, and Aang explains that he's used to situations like this, which surprises Sinuo even more. As the assessment continues, many of the first-time participants who are trying the synthesized armor for the first time show signs of discomfort and pain. This happens because their bodies experience a powerful surge of energy from the demonic monster core, which they need to endure. Those who can't handle the intense pressure usually give up, while those who manage to reach at least a 10% synchronization frequency pass the test. Some results are surprising. For example, Yuhui achieves a synchronized frequency of 30%. Yao Tang tells the examiner that they've found some very promising young candidates, and the examiner agrees, noting that 6 new soldiers have reached a frequency of 30% or higher, which is impressive for their region. When it's Aang's turn to be evaluated, Yao Tang mentions that there are also individuals with less impressive natural abilities. The other soldiers make fun of Aang, predicting that with his weak body, the energy surge will likely make him so overwhelmed that he'll vomit blood. As Aang approaches the machine for his turn, he thinks to himself that they can keep laughing now, but they haven't seen anything yet. Soon, they might be so astonished by his performance that their jaws will drop. Aang is in the process of picking a demonic core to attach to his synthetic armor. After thinking it over, he chooses the red core. These demonic cores, which are collected from battles, come in 6 different colors. The most common ones are red, yellow, green, and blue. Each color stands for a specific ability. Red is for strength, yellow is for defense, green is for recovery, and blue is for nimbility. There are also purple and black cores, which are much rarer. The purple core gives supernatural abilities, while the black core, which is very rare, controls time and space. As Aang is hooked up to the machine that will connect the core to his armor, he thinks about the process, known as synchronized frequency. He realizes that the most important thing in this process is willpower. The stronger your will, the more energy you can draw from the demonic core, and it also affects how much resistance you have. Once the synthesization process is done, the operator asks Aang if he's ready to go ahead. Aang, feeling prepared, says he is. Meanwhile, in the resting area where others who have completed the synthesization are resting, a sudden bright red light catches everyone's attention. Lu, sensing the strong energy, looks toward the testing area where the process is still happening. She's shocked to see that the powerful reaction is coming from Aang. Meanwhile, Aang is fully connected to the machine and is told to open his eyes. With all his strength, he decides to show them the synchronized frequency of the strongest soldier. Everyone is amazed by how bright his light shines, and Sinuo realizes Aang has been hiding his true power. The operators are shocked as Aang's synchronization frequency quickly passes 40%. Hearing their reactions, Aang smirks, remembering that his frequency used to reach 96%. He tenses his muscles, drawing more energy, and the percentage rises to 60%. Yao Tang is stunned, wondering how Aang's frequency is so high, and asks if something went wrong, but a woman tells him it's still increasing. It soon reaches 80%, shocking everyone. The soldiers question if Aang is cheating or if there's something wrong with the armor, but Aang thinks to himself that he is the king, the strongest soldier, and if the core wasn't so low-leveled and his body wasn't so weak, his aura would have made them all kneel. Suddenly, Aang feels a wave of weakness wash over him, as if all his energy is being drained from his body. Confused and alarmed, he wonders what is happening as he notices his strength rapidly fading. In that moment, the demonic core attached to his armor shatters. Realizing that he can no longer endure the process, Aang quickly tells the operator that he can't continue. The operator, clearly annoyed, checks the equipment and notices that Aang's synchronization frequency has plummeted to just 10%. Meanwhile, a female operator informs Yao Tang that they examined the shattered core and discovered that it was an abnormal one, which is why it displayed random numbers. Hearing this, Yao Tang feels relieved. Sinuo rushes to Aang's side, helping him as he lies on the stage, exhausted. The other soldiers begin to whisper among themselves, agreeing that the demonic core must have been strange and believing it's impossible for Aang, with his current physical state, to reach such a high synchronization frequency. Lu, watching from the resting room, also feels relieved. She had been worried for a moment, thinking that there might be someone in the region who could outshine her. As Sinuo helps Aang to the resting room, Aang reflects on why he feels the need to compete so fiercely with the others. Despite everything that happened, he considers himself lucky to have passed this stage, even if just barely. In the resting area, Aang sits quietly in a corner, lost in thought about what just happened to him. He reflects on how it felt like a single breath drained all the strength he had deep within his heart, something that shouldn't have happened. With his strong willpower alone, he believes he should have been able to reach at least 80% synchronization. He also wonders why the core, even though it was low-leveled, shattered when it shouldn't have. As Aang continues to puzzle over this, Yao Tang enters the room and congratulates the group for making it to the final assessment, which is real combat practice. He informs them that they will soon face a demonic monster for the first time and expresses his hope that they will pass the assessment safely and smoothly. The soldiers begin to sweat with nerves as Yao Tang orders them to head to the third assessment field. They start marching in formation, but Aang, still exhausted, lags behind, walking slowly and thinking to himself that he might not survive this. Yao Tang notices Aang trailing behind and then spots a piece of Aang's broken core on the floor. He picks it up and continues to watch Aang leave the room, his curiosity piqued. Yao Tang wonders how Aang will perform in the next evaluation, especially in the hunt outside the wall, where the dense fog will add to the challenge. All the soldiers gather at the gate, preparing to leave the safety of the region and venture outside the walls. As the gate slowly opens, Aang realizes that this is his first time leaving the city. He now understands that 60 years after his time, people live in isolated regions, separated from the rest of the world. The soldiers begin to ask each other questions, but the examiner quickly tells them to stop talking and to move out quietly. He warns them that if they have so much energy, they should focus on checking their armor because failing to do so could cost them their lives. Aang glances at his demonic core, noting that it seems to be a perfectly fine strength core. He can't shake the feeling that the problem isn't with the core itself. He recalls how his strength suddenly dipped earlier and thinks it felt like something inside him was rejecting the core. Aang begins to wonder what kind of situation he's in and whether it might be a consequence of his transmigration to this new time. As Aang steps outside the gate, he suddenly feels a powerful shockwave ripple through the outside world. The sensation is overwhelming, and he becomes aware of the presence of several monsters lurking beyond the walls. Deep within a tunnel, Aang hears the voice of a monster, surprised and fearful, saying that it's impossible for there to be an even higher-tiered demonic monster than itself. Aang snaps back to reality and is shocked by what he just experienced. He realizes that, for a moment, his inner self is strangely connected with the outside world in a way he can't fully understand. As he's lost in thought, Liu, who is standing behind him, asks when he's going to move. Aang quickly turns to her, apologizing for holding up the line. He notices that Liu, Sinuo, and Suiju are the only ones still behind him. The examiner then announces that since the four of them are together, they will form a group, as everyone else has already been grouped. Suiju, with a playful grin, teases Aang, asking if he planned it this way to get teamed up with them. Aang denies it, but Liu simply walks past him, saying it's fine as long as he doesn't slow them down. Liu secretly feels relieved because she has been worried that no one would want to team up with her. Sinuo then suggests to Aang that they should go and join the others, while Suiju pulls out a camera to take a picture to celebrate their successful grouping. The soldiers are taken to a large black stone monument called the Dispersal Stone Monument. This monument is built from a special type of stone that has the unique ability to clear away the fog. The examiner explains that the third assessment requires them to work in groups of 4. He makes sure everyone understands that their task is to venture outside the walls and hunt in the fog. Next, the examiner starts handing out equipment to each group. Each group receives a combat dagger and a piece of miniature fog dispersal armor, which is made from the same special stone as the Dispersal Stone Monument. The examiner goes on to explain that each group will enter the fog and head toward a lighted area. Once they reach this area, they will put on the dispersal armor to clear the fog around them and then hunt a specific demonic monster. He adds that their performance will be judged based on their individual skills and how well they work together as a team. This assessment will determine if they are eligible to continue. As the first group starts their assessment, the examiner tells them that their mission is to hunt beyond the walls and into the fog. He explains that this fog-covered world is home to the last big challenge every new soldier must face. The dangers in the fog are hidden, so becoming a soldier isn't just about physical strength and skills, it also requires a strong heart ready to confront the threats that lie behind the fog. He advises them to work closely with their teammates and be ready to battle the terrifying creatures they encounter. They need to stay alert, kill any demonic monsters they come across, and ultimately show that they can handle the challenges to earn their title as soldiers. The first group manages to defeat the assigned demonic monsters, and once they have completed their task, the examiner announces that it's time for the next group to get ready for their turn. Meanwhile, in the Hiluos region, the second commander, Dada Zhao, is watching the first group fight in the assessment. She notices that there are several talented newcomers among them, but her main focus is on Situ Liu. Jiao turns to Yao Tang and Qiao Er, the Hiluos region's first commander, and asks who they are interested in. Qiao Er mentions that descendants from martial families, when properly trained, can become famous soldiers. Yao Tang points out that Aang is someone worth paying attention to. He explains that even though Aang's demonic core shattered, they checked it thoroughly and found nothing wrong with it. Yao Tang is puzzled about what exactly went wrong with Aang and is deep in thought when Zhao playfully punches him on the arm, calling him Tang Tang. This makes Yao Tang blush, and he shouts at her to stop calling him that. Qiao Er teases Yao Tang, saying that Jiao is the only one who can make him blush like that. The mood shifts to seriousness as Jiao asks if the tears of the demonic monsters have been checked. She emphasizes that the assessment field should only have unfinned demonic monsters. Yao Tang reassures her, saying that for safety reasons they spent several days making sure that the area around the Hiluos region is free of one-finned demonic monsters. Qiao Er adds that if a one-finned demonic monster were to appear, they would have to do everything in their power to protect the soldiers taking part in the assessment. After a series of assessments, it's finally time for Aang's group to take their turn. Everyone is watching closely, eager to see how Liu will perform. As the group gets ready for their test, Aang puts on the miniature fog dispersal armor and prepares to start running. However, Liu suddenly grabs the armor from him and dashes off, telling the others to keep up with her. In her mind, Liu thinks they should try hard to keep up with her, as she considers herself the most impressive member of the group. Aang feels frustrated because he knows that Liu is mainly interested in being the center of attention. Despite his irritation, the rest of the group runs after her. Once they enter the fog, Liu moves with impressive agility and puts on the miniature fog dispersal armor to clear the fog around them. Jiao, observing from a distance, praises Liu's performance. She notes that even though Liu's core is still recovering, her physical abilities seem just as strong as those of people with a blue agility core. Jiao attributes this impressive skill to Liu's background in martial arts, which has clearly given her an advantage. 3 monsters suddenly appear, and Aang immediately tells Sinuo to clear a path for them. Sinuo quickly swings himself into action, landing right in front of the monsters. Using the power from his demonic core, he blasts the monsters away. Yao Tang praises Sinuo for being very skilled at using the strength of his core effectively. Aang instructs his teammates to focus on defeating the monsters one by one. Suiju starts the attack, using both her demonic core's power and her own strength to strike the first monster. She hits it repeatedly until the monster weakens and collapses. Sinuo then steps in to deliver the final blow, killing the monster. Qiao Er observes their teamwork and is impressed. He notes that Suiju is working especially well, as her blue agility core helps her move in a smooth, coordinated way. Yao Tang, however, yells at Xiao Or to stop focusing on Suiju and pay attention to the task at hand. Lu then turns her attention to the second monster. She uses her combat dagger to stab it and infuses it with her power. After making the monster vulnerable, she quickly jumps out of the way before it explodes. For the last monster, Aang decides to take action. He plans to target all 3 of its vital points. Using his combat dagger, he stabs the monster in the neck, chest, and abdomen. After his precise attacks, the monster collapses and falls to the ground. Aang reflects on his own limitations. Realizing that his body can only exert so much force due to its current weakness, he decides to use this moment as an opportunity to test his body's capabilities further. With this in mind, he charges at the remaining monster, ready to see what he can achieve. The monster stands and quickly attacks Aang, but he deflects the attack and punches the monster. He reasons that he did not respond quickly enough, and he then stabs the monster with his dagger, reasoning that his body coordination is poor as well. He continues stabbing the monster at different points while avoiding being hit by the monster, but he feels he does not have enough explosive power. Sinuo says it is as if Aang is toying with his opponent. Suiju keeps on taking picture after picture, hoping to capture the whole fight, and Lu reasons that Aang is taking the spotlight away from her on purpose. Jiao asks Yao Tang who Aang is, saying he is pretty impressive, and Qiao Yer says he moves like a veteran, but Yao Tang watches without saying a word. Aang stands in front of the terribly bleeding monster, trying to catch his breath. He reasons that with his new body he cannot use even one of his old skills, and he runs out of breath after a few light movements. He says he is done assessing himself as the body is worst, so it is time the monster dies. As he is about to kill the monster, a red light emerges from the ground that kills the monster, and the group is surrounded by huge roots of trees. As they are wondering what is happening, a monster comes out from the ground, spreading red mist around. The mist gets to Yao Tang, and he realizes that it is a one-fin monster. He tells the soldiers to retreat to the city, and they all run for their lives. Qiao Yer and Jiao run toward the monster. They tell the soldiers not to panic, as they will all be safe if they stay beside Yao Tang, who will escort them back to the city. Meanwhile, the monster is surprised to see humans as it perceives the smell of a demon. It wonders if a human has the scent of a demon, and he looks at Aang and his teammates, wondering which one of them it is. Aang and his teammates are scared as they realize that it is a one-fin demon. Liu realizes that it is nothing like the no-finned ones they fought earlier. She feels as if she will be ripped apart in the blink of an eye, and she cannot move her body at all. The monster stands in front of Aang, who reasons that his body is no match for a one-finned demon. He realizes that it is the first time he is experiencing the oppression that normal warriors feel when they face a finned demon. The monster decides to take the 4 of them with him, and it extends a rope-like structure that makes them all fall unconscious. Qiao Yer and Jiao break through the roots it used to surround the teammates, which surprises the monster. Qiao Yer tells the monster not to touch the soldiers, but before they can get to it, the monster quickly wraps its roots around itself and the teammates. It then goes back through the hole it drilled in the ground. Jiao is shocked that the monster is able to take 4 examinees with it. They suddenly see a swell in the ground, showing the route of the monster, and they follow it. Qiao Yer and Jiao follow the swell to where it stops, but there is no sign of the demon. Jiao wonders how a finned monster still appeared. She knows Yao Tang continuously scouted the area for days to make sure it was clear, and Yao Tang has never been careless in such matters. They feel frustrated as such an occurrence has never happened before. Yao Tang catches up with them and asks where the kids are. As they only stare at him, Yao Tang yells, asking why they stopped, as they must keep up the chase. Qiao Yer explains that they are where the trail ends, and Jiao says it seems the finned demon is hiding somewhere further down the area, and since the area ahead is an unexplored territory, it would not be wise for them to rashly venture into it. Yao Tang bends and touches the ground where the swell ends. He sees a flashback, where a little child is being carried away by a demon, and the child is calling for him. He angrily punches the ground and repeatedly says it is his fault for letting the incident happen. Qiao Yer says they should go back first, as the people in the city are probably in a panic as well, and it is not good if all 3 of them are not there. He says they will send a search squad later to investigate the area and confirm if there are any other finned demons. Jiao bends to comfort Yao Tang. She says what happened to the 4 kids is something none of them ever wanted to occur, but they need to compose themselves. She says she knows it is hard for him, and Yao Tang gently pushes her away. He says they can go back to the city, and he will continue searching the area. Qiao Yer tries to stop him, but Jiao intervenes and tells Yao Tang to make sure he arrives back before the sun sets. As Yao Tang runs off to search for the soldiers, Jiao tells Qiao Yer they can't stop him. Qiao Yer admits that he knows that Yao Tang's brother was kidnapped by the demons, and he has always been blaming himself for that. Jiao points out that if Yao Tang's brother was still alive, he would have been just as big as those kids, and they must have reminded him of his brother. Meanwhile, deep down in the ground, Aang regains consciousness and wonders where he is. He realizes that they are underground and are tied up to roots, but the others are still unconscious. As he looks around, the monster appears behind him saying he managed to wake up. He turns to see the Fin demon, who says Aang woke up rather quickly, which is as expected. The monster says Aang is different, which makes him curious. It walks around Aang and suddenly smashes him to the root. It holds down his neck and asks why Aang smells like one of them, and how can it be that a human has a demonic aura that is even potent than its own. Aang asks what it means, and he suddenly bursts out of the roots, tying him down. He brings out his dagger and attacks the monster, but it easily deflects his attack. This makes Aang frustrated as he reasons that if it was his previous life, he would have been able to cut off the monster's head before it could even react. He looks at his teammates and reasons that he needs to save them all. He prepares to attack the monster again, reasoning that it is a red core demon, which is highly agile with dexterous joints for superior reflexes and attacks, but the fact that its joints lack the protection of its tough, thickened skin serves as both its strength and its weakness. As Aang almost stabs the monster, it says his attempt is futile, and it extends its nails to stab Aang's shoulder. What do we expect next? Is this how the weak but non-relenting Aang will die? Will he survive in the hands of the one-finned demon? And what is this talk about him smelling like a demon and having a demonic aura? Let's find out together.